Just going to give our attendees a second to log in because I see 3 right now. So I just want to give the webinar a moment to warm up. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Okay, I'm going to have us get started in the interest of time. I think we'll have more folks joining shortly. Before we get started, I would like to turn it over to Heidi Benoit, who's our Spanish interpreter for the evening. We're very lucky to be working with her, and so I'll just have her take the floor here.
Bienvenido esta noche. Mi nombre es Heidi, yo voy a ser su intérprete. Si necesita interpretación en español, por favor presione el icono del globo y seleccione español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Heidi. So for this evening, I'm going to have Cindy Keegan start us off with some slides. We're so excited to have you all here. We're going to be talking about wind industry jobs for Salem. And we just want to welcome everyone. We have a lot of people in our panelist section here, but don't worry, we're not all going to be speaking this evening. We just have a lot of folks supporting this presentation this evening. We are recording this, but it is in webinar mode, so don't worry, your face is not visible unless you're a panelist. And I am going to turn it over to Cindy Lupi and Cindy Keegan to do a little intro.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I am so pleased to be here tonight with all of this amazing grassroots leadership in this area. I want to thank everyone for their interest in this issue. This is a campaign and an effort that has been led by grassroots passion for the past 20 plus years. And Clean Water Action has been privileged to be partnering with many of the leaders over the course of that time. But make no mistake, the heart and the soul of this effort is based in Greater Salem. So it's very exciting to be looking at this next phase of leadership as it comes together. We've been on this path together, shifting away from coal-fired power as the most polluting of all the fossil fuels to an innovative offshore wind launch and future. And it's just a really exciting time for all of us. We've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And one of the biggest lessons is that we want to ground this kind of work in our values. And I think we're very fortunate, all of us together, to be supporting and seeing as interconnected economic, racial, and environmental justice as a package deal and things that need to be woven together. So again, thank you all for being here, and let me turn things over to Cindy Keegan.
Hello, I just want to go ahead and welcome everybody once again that has joined us tonight. Just a couple of rules of the road for the evening's event. Again, this is co-hosted by Salem Alliance for the Environment and Clean Water Action, and it's the Wind in Our Sails Introduction to Wind Industry Jobs. We want to welcome all attendees. All attendees will be in muted mode during the webinar. We want to encourage you to go ahead and ask your questions, type your questions in the Q&A section, and put your name in that area if you could. This presentation will be recorded and will be made available for future uses on the Salem Safe YouTube channel. And we'd like to invite you to follow Clean Water Action and follow Salem Alliance for the Environment as well as we move forward. Hopefully. So welcome again to our primary event this evening. And this will be somewhat of our agenda. Bonnie, do you want to take this portion just to give people a flavor for what the event will hold?
Sure. Thanks, Cindy. So this evening, we're very fortunate to have Buddy Andrade of Old Bedford Village Development Corporation. He has been a guiding light to Salem as we embark on offshore wind. He's over in New Bedford and is seeing this happen in real time. He's an advocate, an activist, workforce development guru. So we're very fortunate to have him with us this evening to sort of get us warmed up and talking about these jobs, because he's seeing it happen and is really good at speaking to everyone about what's coming and what's the future for Salem. And then we have Arkita Howard, John Barry, and M. Glavin, who are from Crowley, who are going to talk to us about the jobs that their work is going to bring. And then Nikki Collard Andrade will also be speaking from Avangrid about those job opportunities. And then we'll have Seth Luttrell wrap us up. He's our Deputy Port Authority Director. I don't know, Seth, you've got a long title, so I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll get into the questions and answer session, really the part that we're all here for this evening. So Buddy, take it away.
Okay, well, good introduction into wind industry. I want to first express who I am. My name is John G. Buddy Andrade. I'm the Executive Director of Old Bedford Village, also the President of the Minority Action Committee. I have a long history of dealing with civil rights issues, affirmative action, equal opportunity. And my background has been developing training programs and operating training programs and things like that. It's a lot of work. Environmental work, emergency response projects such as the BP oil spill, Puerto Rico, Katrina hurricane, and Michigan oil spill, and a whole bunch in between that we have put people to work on these emergency contracts around the country. About 2000, 2005, the city of New Bedford and many other places started talking about renewable energy and green jobs, and we were on the forefront of all those conversations with Van Jones and many others in regards to green jobs, renewable energy, solar, hydro, wind turbines, and the list goes on in regards to weatherization and energy efficiency and things of that nature. So our background is very, very broad and inclusive of all the things that we need to attack and deal with climate change and how to deal with the carbon footprint in our communities. Now, in order to go forward with all of this, you have to have the community involved. You have to identify who the contractors are, the companies are, the developers, all the players that are involved in these big ideas. And 9 out of 10 times, we're not at the table. So what we have tried to do is make sure that we're at the table, what we're doing, and it's very important, is to make sure that people understand what we are doing. So I'm very pleased to see that we started off with having Hadi talking in translation, because it's very important that we don't leave anybody behind. Crowley, Avangrid, Vineyard Wind 1, Mayflower, all of these companies are going to need all the people they can get. So we have to be very inclusive. We have to throw a wide net out there to bring people in, see what they're looking for, what they're interested in, what kind of careers they want to get involved with, and then be able to provide the services, the support, the training, the screening, and all the necessary things we need to do to put together qualified individuals. Qualified. So being bilingual, being inclusive is so important. I'm Cape Verdean. We've got an issue with how to do that because we also have Portuguese, but Cape Verdeans also have their own language. So now we have Cape Verdean, Portuguese, Spanish, and we're working on Haitian and Gigi Mayan languages. In New Bedford, we have 43 different languages. So it's very important that we be inclusive. I believe in the big table. Everybody should have a seat at the table. And therefore, we begin to develop relationships. You must sit down with the unions. You must have a relationship with them. Any of your trade schools, the vocational schools, the high schools, any of the other companies in Salem or in the the region that may want to have an opportunity to participate in this offshore wind industry, bringing them involved, getting them to be part of the process and at the table. When it comes to training, some of these companies might be important in the training. We have been fortunate here in New Bedford to get our EPA brownfields, our environmental workforce job training grants that has helped us out with getting some of the OSHA courses and classes and things of that nature. Being in contact and involved with the Mass Clean Energy Center is very, very important. Mass Clean Energy Center is the power behind all of this stuff. They have the federal as well as the state responsibility to bring all this stuff together and make it happen in our communities. And the industry, we have been saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming. Well, no, it's not coming. It is here. It is not waiting for the next train to come in or the next plane. Offshore wind in Massachusetts is here. I have had the opportunity to participate in several offshore wind conferences in Portland, Maine, Cranston, Rhode Island, Trenton, New Jersey, Boston, the American Wind Energy Association, the International Partnership Forum, Rudders. We just had one in Boston back in July. And at each and every one of these conferences, I've learned. And that's the importance of being able to talk and network with people so that we can learn what we're talking about. Now, it is very, very important, and I'm glad to see that Crawley and Algod are a part of this, because we need to know from them what they need. Then we need to go out in the community and find, do we have them? And then recruit them, bring them in and prepare them. One of our key pieces is, are you ready? Are you ready as an individual to go to work? Are you ready as an individual to understand what the renewable energy industry is all about and what offshore wind is going to do for our neighborhoods and our communities? It is very, very important that everybody in Salem is at the table. Your city councils or your select people, they need to really be turning the volume up on this stuff, and so that all their constituents know that this industry is coming. There's going to be a brand new port here. I look at the picture of your port. That's the same kind of a picture we had in New Bedford about 8 years ago when we developed the Marine Commerce Terminal here. I think it was $130 million for that terminal when it first got started. Now we're talking about expanding it already. So there's a lot of stuff here. But Crawley and Algod, those who are going to be doing the hiring, those who are going to be looking for the small businesses to participate. And that's whether you're talking about pipe fitters, if you're talking about power drivers, electricians, laborers, welders, underwater divers. There are so many pieces to this. And so we have got to be able to come and really zero in on what the needs are of the companies and the unions, and what do we have as far as bodies in our community, and go out there and recruit, talking to the high school, talking to the vocational school, talking to the Chamber of Commerce, all your business organizations, and have them be part of that recruitment process. But now you got these people standing at the door. You got to bring them in. You got to interview them. You got to have applications done. You got to do some background and all that stuff. Getting them ready. The key thing is, are you ready to go to work? And I think I'll stop right about there. And if anybody has any questions, we can. I have plenty more things to talk about, but I think we, for the sake of time, I'll leave it right there and we'll move on.
Thanks so much, Buddy. I just want to take a second. Anna, do you want to, I think there might have been a challenge in the chat. Do you want to just remind folks how to get into the Spanish speaking room if that's needed?
Sí, si algunas personas han entrado y ya está comenzada la sesión, por favor presionen el botón donde aparece el globo al pie de la pantalla y así pueden seleccionar su idioma, español. Ahorita están en la pantalla de inglés, pero pueden presionar ese icono del globo, del mundo, y presionar español, y allí pueden escuchar la traducción en español. Gracias.
Thanks, Anna. And thanks again, buddy. Every time you talk about wind, I'm like so pumped up and ready to go.
Good.
So appreciate that.
Could I just add, I forgot to talk about the GWO, which is the global safety program. That is premier, because everything, any form of construction, safety is and with offshore wind, it is a big deal. And they mean what they say when they talk about safety. So making sure our residents understand that. And OSHA training and GWO training, Mass Maritime, Bristol Community College is going to be coming online and doing that as well. But there are plenty of resources, but that GWO training and union training is very important.
Great. Thanks, buddy. All right, let's pass it on to our team at Crowley. Arkita Howard's with us this evening. Thanks so much for being here, Crowley. Let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you for having us. Buddy, great intro. Really appreciate it. Everyone, my name is Arkita Howard. I oversee government affairs and engagement for Crowley. So my stakeholders are people like you on the phone, anyone from the federal, the state, and also the local levels, whether it's from elected officials, K through 12, universities, community colleges, maritime, workforce development, economic development, the trades, any associations. I actually chair chamber in my hometown in Virginia and serve on a number of workforce development boards as well. So I understand the language that's needed. I understand some common problems, but I think most importantly, I know what questions to ask. Our group is very diverse, as I know Buddy knows, and the folks from SAFE. Crowley is a maritime company. Offshore wind is heavily maritime, so this is really in our wheelhouse. So I'd love to introduce the other folks on the team who are joining tonight. We have John Berry, who has deep experience around terminals, terminal management. John often joins me and he also guides our strategy around terminals. So that's also the workforce around it, what we need, and also the particulars and details of compliance and also safety around terminals as well. And then we also have M. Galvin, and she is our workforce development advisor specifically for offshore wind. She represents our people services, which is our human resources, but specifically around human capital and planning of the workforce and training. And she's specifically recruiting for our mariners. So I will turn this over to John Berry to share a little bit more about Crowley.
Sure. Thanks, Arkita. Appreciate that. I was going to let you do this slide, but I'll jump in. So just a little bit about Crowley, everybody, and first of all, just to really appreciate SAFE and the rest of the panel and the group, and obviously our interest at the port in Salem. So thanks everybody for their time. A little bit about Crowley. Basically, it's just a quick slide talking about some of the other business units. There's actually 5 business units now. Offshore Wind Services, which Crowley Wind Services, which Arkita and I are sitting under, is the 5th business unit, and that just is a little bit of a demonstration to the group how serious Crowley is about offshore wind development. Some other details in there with respect to amounts of revenues and vessels, and also numbers of employees, and just like Arkita mentioned, 7,000 employees employed around the world, and they are mostly U.S. mariners. And I think that's probably good enough on that slide. We'll get into the meat and potatoes. And this is an overview of the Salem terminal. This area that's outlined in red is the actual part of the facility which we will be developing for offshore wind in Salem. A little more detail about the exact or some of the detail about how it's going to work is primarily is a laydown space or a marshalling terminal, And there'll be 2 laydown areas for what they call WTG components, which are basically the nacelles, the towers, and the blades. The area that makes a transition between the larger laydown area and the smaller one, we're calling it a transition yard. It will more or less just make a Route 1 exchange, if you will, from one laydown area to the other. The pre-assembly area in the wharf and bulkhead are really the where a lot of the investment will be going into improve the stability of the ground there. So a lot of work will be happening from a construction standpoint in those areas. And that pre-assembly area in particular will have to be strengthened to build these or pre-assemble these towers before they get shipped out to the wind farm areas. The berths, obviously at this time, we're planning on having 2 berths. There'll be one at the main berth position where it stands today. Another berth is planned where the South Jetty is, where the fishing pier is on the South Jetty at this time. The South Jetty berth will be known as a receiving berth, and it's intended to receive components in. And then we want to be able to use the heavy lift berth in the pre-assembly area to load out the vessels. Incidentally, the main berth area or the loadout berth will also use as a cruise terminal berth to support the Salem Harbor Port Authority in their work with the cruise industry to try to keep that as a base business for Salem. On-site equipment, again, just a brief, there will be some pretty big cranes out there on the facility that we'll use to handle these very, very heavy components. And you also see what they call SPMTs, which are self-propelled modular transport. Those equipment can handle the heavy loads that are required, and they can transport this equipment or these WTG components all throughout the yard. And so you know, just a couple of notes that again, these components are extremely heavy and they're handled very, very carefully. So it's not something that we move around in a very haphazard way. This is just a slide talking about terminal management, and just to bring it back to what we were supposed to be talking about here with respect to workforce development. Obviously, from a terminal management standpoint, and you know, there's going to be a lot of jobs, good union jobs on that facility, and it starts really at the waterfront with the Longshoremen and the International Longshoremen's Association. And then obviously in the pre-assembly areas and all throughout the rest of the yard, we'll have electricians from the IBEW and carpenters. And then we'll have also union laborers and crane operators, union crane operators on the facility. So a lot of good union opportunities at the facility. And then with the bottom half of that slide just talks about an operations and maintenance that will not really be a part of what happens up in Salem, because Salem will be falling under the marshaling services for terminal management. So that's operations and maintenance will be more for vessel support in support of the offshore wind farms through their development. This is just a slide talking about Crowley's vessel management. And again, and Em will talk a little bit more about it, and probably just turn it over to her at this point, because this is an area where Em is actually a specialist. So Em, if you want to take over vessel management, and then you can go into the next slide, just talk about mariners and what we're looking for as far as workforce there.
Yeah, sure. We have 130 years of vessel management experience, and in one of the business units that all of our shipping is consolidated under one business unit that John mentioned earlier. We have over 10 different fleets with all different specializations. And our with wind, looking to expand there. We have investment in technology to maximize operations, some of that technology being entirely electric vessels. An in-house naval architecture and engineering firm located in Seattle, and our own feedering solutions. So if we could go to the next slide, I'll talk more about the workforce. So we have been pursuing collaborative opportunities with local colleges, nonprofits, and academies to help provide the Global Wind Offshore certified training with a partner, Rely on New Tech, that Buddy has mentioned earlier. Some of the institutions we have partnered with to provide this training are Massachusetts Maritime Academy, SUNY Maritime, or State University of New York Maritime, and Maine Maritime Academy. Mass Maritime particularly has been a very notable partner and leader in this area. As you might know, they're the first in the US to provide all 5 units of the Global Wind Offshore Global Wind Organization Basic Safety Training Program. It's been open since 2019 and has had 200 participants to already successfully complete the training, with plans to expand wind offerings in 2023. On Crowley's half of this partnership, we have in the past and continue to provide scholarships, internships, and hands-on at-sea training for Mass Maritime students, and year-round efforts to recruit graduates from the school to work in all of our fleets. Crowley also has a strong relationship with union labor. We currently have, step back a minute. All of our mariner and terminal jobs are unionized, and we currently have over 30 active collective bargaining agreements with 7 maritime unions across the nation. And this is because this is founded in our commitment to provide a fair and safe workspace for our employees. Moving forward, Crowley will be interested in maintaining our existing relationships with groups like SAFE and Mass Maritime, and building new relationships throughout New England with institutions like high schools, secondary education institutions like community colleges, some of which Buddy mentioned, and other nonprofits, to spread the word about wind and the job opportunities that we have here, and also, providing, not just interest, but trying to engage communities that might not think that they're accessible to this, not just on the shoreline. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to John.
Hi, sorry about that. Technical difficulty. Process and timeline. Just wanted to run over this just real quickly for everybody's information. At this point, we're looking to continue with our design and permitting effort at the facility, and we will be beginning construction sometime next year in the spring of summer of 2023. And then the construction will go pretty much year round up until the winter of 2024, and we look to go operational with our partner Avangrid in 2025. So that's really all I had, and just wanted to be respectful to the time and let Avangrid have a chance on this as well. So I will stop sharing and turn it over to Nikki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you to everyone on the panel, and also to the organizers at SAFE. Hi, Buddy. Just want to express the challenge is going to be for me to not talk with my hands and to speak slowly. So this could be rough, but we'll see how this goes. For everyone on the webinar, my name is Nikki Collard-Andrade, and not related to Buddy, but we both are in the New Bedford area, so that should speak volumes. And I work for Commonwealth on the Commonwealth Wind Project, which is an Avangrid offshore wind project. Move here too. Who is Avangrid? Avangrid is a leading sustainable energy company in transitioning away from oil and gas into the clean energy future. And currently, there are several projects that Avangrid Renewables is responsible for and has ownership in. First of which they are 50% co-owners in a joint venture with Vineyard Wind on the Vineyard Wind 1 project. And on this slide, I'm not sharing my slide. Just realized that. Here we go. Is that better? There we go. If you could look at this diagram here, you can see where the lease areas that Avangrid is working on and building projects in. So this one here for Vineyard Wind 1, we are 50% joint venture with them on that. And also Park City Wind, which is a little bit further down. That's going to be basically how a lot of the job opportunities for Park City will be in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where that originates from. And then Commonwealth Wind, which was the last offshore wind lease area, and we won that bid last December. So we've been very hard at work on pulling together the partnerships with Crowley as well for the redevelopment of the Salem port and the city of Salem with Seth, and really working to make sure that we're not all trying to recreate the wheel and that we're being proactive in how we do our outreach and have done a really great job, I think, of pulling that together so that it is a collaborative effort. The company itself is the third largest renewable energy company in the United States. And for the projects that we hold in New England, it will be enough power to power 1.55 million homes in Massachusetts, in New England. There's been a lot of mentioning of different types of jobs that we will be offering when all of this comes together and when all of the construction starts. And a little bit unlike Crowley, Avangrid as a developer, in a lot of ways, we don't do the direct hiring. So we hire contractors to build the project and they do their hiring. But as the developer, we oversee that there are definitely kind of the overarching responsibility of DEI and making sure that the people that work on the project are represented from the communities that the projects are happening in, and making sure that there's equality across the board within all of those contracts and contractors that we will be bringing on to build the project. So just some of the jobs, I separated these out a little bit here because there's some jobs that you would definitely think of, like skilled labor for construction of both onshore and offshore components of the wind turbine farm. And then fisheries management, of course. I won't go through all of these, electrical engineering, research and development is really big in making sure that we're keeping up with everything that is being done in development stages for offshore wind so that we're always on the forefront of that as a company. Marine trades, of course, and marine science. I put down here PSOs, for example. PSO is a protected species observer. And this is, if you're interested in marine biology at all, this is a really great way to get a foot into the door, into the industry. For every vessel that goes out, we have protected species observers on those vessels to make sure that if for any reason we need to stop production, just because there is a protected species in the area, that we are accountable for that. And then other jobs that you may not think of that are very important to the industry as well are communications and public policy, as Akita was mentioning, for permitting, public affairs, financing, human resources, and advanced manufacturing. That is one area that I think is definitely going to continue to grow with the industry as well as the offshore farms, because we've got to start manufacturing a lot of this, the materials in the United States, and it will definitely help to grow the industry. So how do you find out, how do you figure out if you have a place in the industry, and how do you get there? Many of the jobs that are going to be available will be jobs that will travel in the construction area, that will travel with the different wind farms as they're being built. So we have 4, I believe, right now currently in Massachusetts, but as those are built out, there will be additional places that will you may want to travel to. And where to start to find out if this is something that it would be something you'd be interested in is with the Mass Clean Energy Center that Buddy mentioned. They have a really great directory on pathways on how to become involved in offshore wind. So if you go to this link below that I've put on here, you can choose an area that you're interested in, and it will help you guide you through what are the next levels for you, so you can see where the jobs are going. And even if you start at the entry level, where you could possibly end up, and also where education and training is happening for those types of jobs is listed on this website. And there are other resources there as well. So this is a really great place to kind of go and play around on, and to give you some insight into what you may need that is specific to the industry from the Mass Clean Energy Center. And you may be further along than you think. So there are definitely community colleges and state colleges, and right within your own high school in Salem, there's a career and technical education section that you have opportunities to take coursework now that would be for skilled labor, and you should probably definitely connect with your high school if you are in high school, or it's a really good way to start to bridge that gap for the jobs and the amount of people that we'll need as the industry grows in the United States. I've put a link here for the Mass Building Trades. If you have graduated from a vocational school, you've been through a vocational program, this is a great place to start. There's a directory listed of apprenticeships, and that will be with all of the mass building trade unions. So I know it's been mentioned already, but carpentry and electricity and industrial painting. So this is a really good place to start. There's the ILA that John had mentioned for the longshoremen. And then if you have no vocational training, that's okay. You can still get involved by doing a pre-apprenticeship program, and there's a link for that as well for the mass building trades. And again, the local community colleges, Salem State, Endicott College has a really great engineering program. And all of the UMass campuses in some way, shape, or form are offering some type of programming to lead into offshore wind. And going into offshore wind I can't really think of many jobs or many industries that don't play into offshore wind in some way, shape, or form. So if you're interested, reach out to these different, through these links, you can reach out to these different organizations and find out more information. And just here, this just gives you our information to contact me directly if you would like for the workforce section and the port redesign. We have certain people dedicated to that. So if there are questions for the port or community or just questions in general about the Avangrid projects, you can reach out to myself or Pat Johnson. And I will stop sharing.
So Nikki, I think it's on me to take over from there, I believe.
I think so.
And Bonnie can cut me off if I'm wrong, but I'll be very brief because I do want to make sure that we have plenty of time for Q&A. But I do just want to kind of acknowledge right away, Buddy, when you spoke about the value of partnerships and the role of CEC. I was doing a little fist bump with my camera turned off because that's something that the city has taken an active role in and has been a big priority for us moving forward. So it was good to have that reassurance. But just by way of introduction, my name is Seth Luttrell. I am the Port Authority Deputy and Planner with the City of Salem. And I just wanted to touch briefly tonight on the role of the city in workforce development and some of the stuff that we're moving forward with. So I guess kind of working towards what I was saying before on the value of partnerships. We're really excited to have recently been the recipient of a grant from Mass CEC, from the Clean Energy Center, around workforce development planning. We are advancing that grant with our partners at Mass Hire, and I see Mary Saris is on here tonight, who's sort of leading that effort for us, along with the Essex County Community Foundation and UMass Amherst through their Marine Station in Gloucester. And what we've recognized is that this is an opportunity that's much bigger than these individual developers that we're partnered with. We're very fortunate to have Crowley and Avangrid as sort of our anchors for this opportunity. But as we see this local supply chain continue to mature and expand, we see a tremendous opportunity to develop a workforce effort intentionally. This is a site that for over 200 years has been an economic generator for the city, as well as a sort of a job hub. Looking back to the age of clipper ships, when this was a critical wharf for bringing in goods from across the world, to its years to the coal terminal, then a coal-fired power plant, and now to our natural gas-fired power plant. This is a site that has gone through many iterations, but now we see the opportunity for offshore wind as being a major driver for things going forward. So the work that we're advancing with Mass Hire, ECCF, and UMass will be around an equitable workforce development plan. And what that will include is looking at the skills that are needed by the industry. So as Buddy mentioned, talking to the developers, talking to sort of other experts in the industry to understand what are the specific skill sets that are going to be required to support this effort. And then looking internally at what do we have in Salem and Lynn and other surrounding areas for programs, for specific skill sets, for training and certification. And then how do we create pathways to really promote an equitable workforce? I think that we have a once in a generation opportunity to do this from the ground up and to build this intentionally. So I'm really excited to be advancing this forward. I think that this is a tremendous opportunity for Salem, and something that the city has been working alongside all of our partners and SAFE especially for the past few years to realize. So with that, I'll close things out and hand it over to somebody that needs no introduction, but certainly deserves a lot of credit for this opportunity, and that's Pat Kazemba. So Pat, take it away.
Trying to start my video. Oh, here it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to Buddy and the folks from Crowley. Thank you, all of you. And thank you to Nikki from Avangrid. It's always great to hear about the opportunities that Avangrid and Crowley are holding out to people in Salem. And now what we want to do is have an opportunity for some questions. And at the end of the Q&A, I will tell you about the next event that SAFE is going to host. So let me turn it back to Cindy Keegan, who will handle the questions and answers. Cindy?
So I am sharing my screen now just to remind people to go ahead and put any questions that they may have in the Q&A portion of the screen. So at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see a Q&A, and you can type questions in there. And we have several, so I think we'll go ahead and get started and ask some of those and see what we get for some answers. So one of the first questions we have was, what paid opportunities will you have for high school and college students in Salem? And will there be a possibility for field trips for our middle school students to start getting them interested? And then secondary to that was also finding out a little bit more about the SAFE Fellowship program that was recently offered. Arkita.
If I could start first, because Crowley's answer is different, and I'll explain it this way. Crowley is one of many companies that actually supports the developer. So the developer is sort of like the start of the opportunity tree, the start of what the product is, and feeds into the design, and therefore all the other opportunities sort of trickle down to companies like Crowley and other supporting. There's so many different expertise that is provided in supporting an actual developer. So there's tons of opportunities. It's very expansive. So I will speak on the opportunities that lies with Crowley, because it's Crowley and all the other supporting companies. We have to bid on work for every developer that has a wind farm that will be constructed. So what those opportunities will be for Crowley and any other company really depends on the work that we are associated with. So for the Salem terminal, we are doing this in phases. I mean, Crowley, because we are the ones establishing the actual terminal. So that in itself is just prepping the actual land that will be used and getting that together. So that will be development and construction. So we'll have all of those, and working with the unions on the ground and the other different organizations. And then also, depending on the work, not only in directly there in Massachusetts, but also the surrounding areas will also help guide us on what job opportunities, also what internships that we will be able to provide. But we're very early, and this is my Crowley hat. Crowley is very early in that process, so we know what we need to construct the terminal, and we're sort of fine-tuning what that is based on the timeline that we have. That will also feed into that strategy. And as time goes on, we'll know more about what other skill sets we need, what other roles we need. And as we are mapping all of that out, and Crowley is in the same position as other supporting characters are in the offshore wind industry, but as we're doing that in parallel, and I love this question about the students, we are here tonight to help provide information, but you in turn as the audience, this is so helpful to us, because from city to city, from state to state, what this looks like, how all of us in the offshore wind industry execute it together, that looks different. So even the questions that are being shared tonight, super helpful. We are partnering, we have partnered with the public school system there. We're going to do more of that hand in hand. We're doing more also specifically with the communities and the neighborhoods. We'll be involved, especially moving forward, even the festivals that are going on. We want to learn what the culture is there. We have some folks there on the ground, and John is a New Englander, which helps, and a lot of our team that's up there in New England. But we need to fine tune that ourselves. So as much as it is us feeding the information to the audience, we are actively creating what that looks like, and even partnering with Seth and his team and getting guidance, and that's also how we were introduced to SAFE and other organizations there that are really helping to drive that, because we are partnering, we have our marching orders, and we just basically help feed the content on what we can do, but how that actually gets executed is by the experts on the ground, whether you're a leader in the community, you're in the church, you are leading organizations or working for organizations such as SAFE, very important to guide us in this. So the middle schools will be a great Crowley resource in joining us with that, John as well. And it needs to be more than just middle schools. We really need to start at kindergarten and beyond. And so those marching orders we take from the superintendent, how can we plug in? What does that look like for you? What goals can we help you to accomplish? So it's more of a, you know, a Q&A for us. So this is ongoing. We're going to continue to fine tune this from the Crowley perspective, because we need a workforce that's not, again, only supporting Salem, but it's also the surrounding projects. So this is actually bigger, it's ongoing, it's going to be past. Crowley will be employing the kindergartners of today, tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we're touching and prepping the folks who are working in these roles now. They have the expertise. We want to prep the folks right before they're going into the workforce. Maybe they're getting educated right now, or just now we're learning the trades. And then also the other folks, to let them know there are all these opportunities. And for a company like Crowley, we have people who work with the trades. We have the mariners, but we also have the corporate services folks. We have people who work in sustainability, who work in finance, who work in human resources, and even on the policy side, like myself. So the opportunities are expansive in the offshore industry as a whole, but we also build that out depending on what our commitment is to each developer. So I know that sounds, I know that needs a little bit of detail, but we are very much in the infancy stage of offshore wind. What I can definitely say is we need so many people as a whole. So we hope to continue to do a good job at partnering and understanding what those needs are. So I will pass it over to Nikki, who has the good stuff right this second.
Thanks, Akita. So just looking at some of the questions here that are in the chat or in the Q&A, you know, we definitely have internship opportunities for graduates. We also have a graduate program for Avangrid, and Vineyard Wind has an internship program. So there are definitely possibilities there. And we've all learned since COVID that you don't have to actually physically be in the same space all the time. So even if you're in Salem or if you're in a surrounding area and you're not necessarily exactly where the, you know, where the main offices are, that doesn't stop you from being involved. I don't know if we want to move on to any other of these other questions.
I want to touch on that. I think when you talk about this also, we talk about dollars and cents. People want to know how much money they're going to make, how is this career going to benefit them, or how to change careers and all that. Well, if you get into the apprenticeship programs, we did a program here, and we were able to show the students in this particular workshop that the first year apprentice POW drivers is $21.88. $21.88. And this is whether you're an 18-year-old or a 25-year-old coming, looking into the business. So that's your first year, and you're got a 4-year apprenticeship program. It's like a college program. And so as you go, each year you'll go up in wages until you become a journey person. And then that can go anywhere from $58 an hour on up, depending on where you work, on what kind of responsibility you have, because each category, there's a category in each area, in each union, and each category carries more money, more responsibility. That goes back to your training, all the training that you get, and you use that as well as your motivation. So wanting to go to, all right, who's the next job coming? And you've got your hands raised because you want to go to the next job, and you're really motivated to learn more, to make more money, and you're making more money as you do this. One of the things that we have talked about here in New Bedford is that, because this is what we were told, that the average person entry level is about $60,000. That's entry level. And if you made that into a career, you can go up to $100,000, $120,000 a year, depending on what you're doing. And O&M is like a 20-year, 30-year job, depending on the life of the turbine itself. And now, mind you, we talk about hundreds of turbines out there eventually, and all of those turbines have to work for their 30-year life. And that O&M is so important to making sure that happens. So the training with the technicians, the laborers, guys who have to go underwater and all that kind of stuff is very important. And then one other thing I learned today about maintenance is that they also have to paint these things underground in the water. So that means you have to be a diver and a painter to go paint. Now, I asked a dumb question, why are we gonna go paint? Well, it's corrosion, it's preventive, it's protecting the turbines so that they can live that entire 30-year period and make everybody money, okay, because it's about money. But these are jobs. These are good paying jobs and good careers with serious challenges and learning and being able to do the work in a safe way. So the money and all that, whether you're talking about the kindergarten kids, because I have a STEAM program for kindergarten kids. We talk about Kids Win, Bonnie, and things of that nature. All of these things get to be creative, because Avogad and Crowley is looking for us. They're all over the place trying to find us. We have to be creative to bring them the right people from kindergarten on up. I just wanted to put the money thing in there because that's an attractive piece to all of this.
It's so important, buddy, because when people are early in their career, you have to talk about the money because that's what they're looking for, is that stability. So thank you.
What Miss Howard is talking about is that this is how serious this stuff is. And when you put the dollars and cents to it, doesn't get easier, it just gets harder. But we have good people in our communities. And you're working with Pat and Bonnie and how Adi, there's no doubt in my mind that CLM has the ability to produce the kind of workforce that we need for Avogad, and including your surrounding towns and cities. Being bilingual, throwing that big net out there and having everybody at the table, win. Everybody wins.
Yeah, and I just, I know we're excited to answer a lot of questions. I'm just going to ask that we let Cindy Keegan sort of moderate that for us as we move on. So if we're ready for the next one, let's have Cindy tee us up.
Sure, we certainly have some great questions in here, and I think there's a lot of them that are related to exactly what we've been talking about, right? Like, what are the job opportunities? How do I get into it? And so we have a couple specifically about kind of working professionals or someone kind of looking to start the career in it, kind of just I guess people are looking for guidance as to kind of where to start, right? Whether it's starting from the safety perspective or starting from an internship or et cetera. If there's any guidance that you can give folks for kind of where the leading starting points might be.
Yeah, I'd like to start with that, because where else to start is in the community. Your organization, SAFE, you guys are the beginning of this. Crowley, Avogad are looking for people like y'all. Who's the contacts in the community? Who are the ones who know where to go, who to call? Who knows the people at the churches, at the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, all those other programs and things? Who knows the Little League program? And that's you guys, the people who live there. You know it, you know the people. Now you got to take that little network you have and make it into a mechanism that's going to attract people to come to you and say, where do I sign up? How do I sign up? And then, of course, now you're going to make your table a little bigger, because you want to make sure Mass Hire is there. You want to make sure the community college is there. You want to make sure somebody from the high school is there, so that we're all working together, networking our ideas, and be creative about our recruitment. Bring the people in and find out where they all are. Who needs this, who needs that? And now there are going to be some issues. We might have to talk about some mental health stuff. We might have to talk about, Johnny needs this, or Susie may need that, and how does all that happen? Nobody is expendable. You got to find a way of what each individual's expertise is, what is going to really entice them to think about a career choice, and where they want to put that time into. So it's up to us and on that community level to be able to really bring them in. Don't be naysayers and all that kind of stuff. And then connecting them with the mass hires and all that, and then working with Ms. Howard and Ms. Andrew to really understand what their needs are and invite them to come meet some of the people that you recruited. Maybe they can motivate them or convince them. We need this, we need that, and then they'll be able to pick, because at the end of the day, it's renewable energy, but it's a new day for Massachusetts in regards to economic development. Families can change their lives, their lifestyles around. Our whole cities and towns and neighborhoods can change. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars over the next 10, 20 years for our communities.
Is there anything that either Crowley or Avangrid would want to add to that, or even perhaps Seth as a representative from the city, as to maybe, you know, if somebody was already interested, they're ready, they're maybe a career professional that's looking to change into the wind industry, where you might suggest they go? I have a couple ideas, but I want to make sure I give you guys an opportunity.
There's definitely, I'm sorry, Akita, but I just wanted to quickly mention that there is a certificate program for career professionals out of UMass Amherst that is fantastic. It is 3 semesters, I believe, and it is basically takes your experience that you already have, uses that as a strength-based way to approach what your interest may be in offshore wind, and gives you the components, teaches you the components for offshore wind. And it's a absolute launching space for getting your foot in the door in any of the facets of offshore wind. So that's at UMass Amherst, and it is a certificate program.
Thank you, Nikki. So to piggyback off of that, I was literally going to say something along those lines. So find those launching pads and familiarize yourself with what's out there. Of course, align it with your interests and where you're at in terms of your skill set or education, and also understand, you know, what you need to get to that point. But I think most importantly, at least review what's out there in terms of if there's any programs that will walk you through offshore wind, to maybe explain what it is. And by the way, most of us who are working in offshore wind, we also had to do this. We had to understand the basics of, okay, this is a wind turbine. These are the things and components that go into it. These are the type of companies and the service offerings that happen, because there are, I love this example that Buddy shared. You know, you have to be a diver and you have to paint. I would have never, ever thought that was needed. There's a specialized role that's needed in Virginia for their wind farm, which will also be needed at every other wind farm. And that's a diver to weld underwater. And there's also a premium that's paid for these particular roles that is at a completely different level than a welder that's on land and doesn't have to weld underwater. And a lot of these roles also have not been done in the US. So, you know, just as much as a lot of folks feel like, well, we don't know what offshore wind is, we don't know what the opportunities are. This offshore wind is something that has been in place in Europe forever. They know all of these different parts, and we're building that skill set here and borrowing some of that information so we can make it make sense for us here in the US, because there are some slight differences. But familiarize yourself, it will make you more confident in what's going on. And also, I would encourage everyone to be curious. This is definitely outside of the box, but whether you already have a skill set, you don't, whether you have a degree or don't, there's literally a place for you, and there are good paying jobs everywhere. But one of the things after you get the training, which will be provided, which will be supported, which will be an opportunity made for all the communities. But yes, I see there's also a question about people of color and minorities and women, and even on the supplier side. offshore wind is very much intentionally directed to make sure that opportunities are targeted for underserved communities, people of color, and minorities. And so each developer, they have their own targets for suppliers, but also hiring, and so do the rest of us. So that is going to be one of the key consistencies as well. But once you get the training, and even if it's basic training, you know, someone at some point in time is going to ask you, well, where do you want to go with that? So at least familiarize yourself, even if it's a little bit, because that will really help you. But most importantly, it will help us. And then we can also continue to guide you. But if you're slightly familiar, then that's going to help both the companies and both the people who are interested in the workforce. And this is free stuff that's available. So Nikki shared some things. We'll make sure that SAFE has some great information here, and also the website that we have as a landing point for Salem. We will share that if it hasn't been shared already. And we are going to be there on the ground in the communities. We already have, we're making our rounds. So definitely appreciate your patience. We are working directly in partnership with Avangrid and the city, because we're also making sure that we are covering every inch of Salem first. We are prioritizing local everything first as much as possible. We want to make sure that we go above and beyond to try to do that. And again, it's not just Crowley, it's every company supporting Avangrid and the other developers. So we are working very closely together to make sure we fill the gap as it relates to workforce.
Great, thank you. I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I think just to stay on the topic of kind of the pathways, one of the questions just is simply, you know, is a high school diploma enough? Like, do you have to have a college graduation? Just so people know kind of how far do they have to go, right? So that would be helpful.
Are you talking, Ms. Howard? Can't hear her.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. You don't need a college degree. And we talk about diversity when we talk about people, but diversity is also in the skill sets that you bring and the expertise. I especially love the question about, well, I want to change career. That is fantastic. If you don't have a career today and you're younger and you're just starting out, there's an opportunity for everyone in the community if they are interested in touching offshore wind in any way. And what we want to do as we're continuing to move forward, as we partner with organizations like SAFE and other community organizations, is, you know, understand and be able to answer those questions on an individual basis as much as possible, because there are people and maybe even groups where they have questions, but they just don't know how to ask it. But we do know the questions to ask to have a better idea of how to provide some guidance, how to connect you to resources, whether it's even the unions there. So this is really a very hands-on situation with workforce, because we all, as Americans, this is something very, very new for us. So it's really working both ways to identify how can we support the interested workforce in getting into these sort of roles? How can we best connect to those opportunities? So I'll pass it to Buddy.
Well, one of the questions talked about the project labor agreement. There is a project labor agreement. I believe it's 20% to ensure that minorities and women and veterans are part of it. And this is a very important piece, having the project labor agreement and making sure that the underserved, the minority communities are in fact tapped and brought to the table, have access to the same training. Now, when we talk about diversity, this also means all of those other folks who are in our communities who are also underserved. They may not be minority or person of that. And I say that to those who are coming out of prison. to those who are in recovery, looking to change their lives. There are many, many, many other facets of our society that need to be included in this. And New Bedford is no different from Salem or Boston or Providence, so we all have the same isms, the same problems. And again, I was mentioning earlier about how to change the communities that we have that are in flux with all the drugs and gun violence and all that kind of stuff. This type of economic development can change a lot of things. And it means getting those who are looking to make the change in their life, who want to be good citizens, who want to raise their families in a very positive way, an opportunity to see a living wage, a wage that can make them happy, make their families happy, and be good citizens in their community. So there's opportunity for everybody. You've got to want to come and get it. Now, as a civil rights person, minorities, affirmative action, all that, I believe in all that. But I have never put a person to work because he was Black or woman. And I've put a whole bunch of folks to work in my time. I've been doing it for 40-some odd years. I place qualified people on jobs because they're qualified. And they happen to be Black, or they happen to be a veteran, or they happen to be a woman. The point is qualifications. We have to train. Yes, having a high school diploma is so important. We've got to make sure that we're all speaking the same language, or we understand math, the basics, and science, and have the work ethics that employers are looking for. So there's a lot goes into this, and quality. We want qualified workers, no matter what part of the community they come from. And that's what these employers are looking for. They'll be happy to have a female. They'll be happy to have a Latino or a Cape Verdean or African American. They'll be happy with all that. If they're good workers, qualified workers, and they're making money for the company, as well as for them and their families and their community. So that's how I look at it. I'm a civil rights person, and I believe in affirmative action. I believe in equal opportunity. It works. It's a tool in the toolbox for employment, is how I look at it. But there are many, many other people in the community that we cannot forget, and we have to make sure they have access to the same opportunities that we're talking about. I hope they answer some of those questions.
Thank you, Buddy. So I think we've touched on a lot of things. I think we've answered a lot of pieces of the questions with everybody's responses. I hope people have heard that there's commitments to diversity and equity in the plans for hiring and training. I hope people have heard there's definitely preferences for local area, both employees as well as suppliers, because that's one of the questions that's definitely in there. I hope people have heard that we need to get people excited from kindergarten through college and beyond, because we're going to need a lot of labor workforce in a lot of varied areas. I think, you know, as I'm looking through the questions, I'm trying not to focus on each and every one, because I think we've answered most of the pieces. One of the things folks might not have seen, and this is part of why we want to start this conversation and dialogue, is that you know, one of the questions that came in actually ended up being more informational than question maybe, but that, you know, Salem High has some great programs already, and they're expanding those programs into more renewable energy activities. So there's things that are starting to move in our community already. There will be more of those things that move in our community. There's grants that the city and Mass Hire and others are going for to help provide that kind of information and get that information out and bring, you know, make our bigger table and bring people to the table, as Buddy has said. So I think that's great. If there's, you know, I think we may have a couple other questions, and I think folks are just wanting to feel like it's not still Salem centric, that we're still also including beyond, right? We've got Gloucester and kind of the entire North Shore. But that we're also considering EJ communities specifically too, right? So we want to give a little priorities here and there, but we want to also be as inclusive as possible. And so I think, you know, if Crowley and Avangrid are also trying to glean information out of the questions that are being asked, that's something to understand too, that while we want to see, you know, Salem get a lot of prosperity from this and gain things, we also definitely have interest in the whole North Shore. And that includes, you know, Gloucester on down. So I think that that's great. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions that we haven't touched upon. And I don't think there are that we necessarily would have anything particularly specific on. I did have one question that I will ask because it was brought up, which is that there was mention of some of these job programs and that there may be scholarship opportunities. And I wanted to understand if that's something that's readily available, or if there's a specific mechanism to find out that information so that we can also share that. So I don't know if one of you can answer that question for us.
Would you repeat that?
Scholarship opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll touch on one part. Mass Clean Energy Center has a real good internship program. Now, I would imagine Crawley and Avgard, those guys have some as well. Because I say that because I know they're trying to groom people. So they're looking for those youngsters coming from colleges and places like that to get into the internship programs. And that is so important. One of the early conversations I had with Bonnie, I got involved with you guys back in May from another friend who told me to call you guys up and let's talk about this. And you know, the internships and the way this whole stuff works is very interesting. You're going to see some people who are in Avgard, I know, but I also met them when they were at Mass Clean Energy Center running things there. This industry is growing. And when you see some of our state people coming in and now becoming part of these companies, and some of the local residents coming in and being part of these companies, you're seeing the whole elevation of Avgard, of Wind One, Mayflower. They're all elevating because they're filling in the bottom, they're filling in the middle. People are coming into the companies, so they're growing. And now all that growth is going to translate back into the community to community growth from the jobs, the pipeline stuff, from the supply chain stuff. But what's happening within these developers right now, they're building. So you're going to probably end up recognizing names. I remember that person now because I have. So I've been doing it for a long time. One of the companies that we were involved with was called Cape Wind. They were the pioneers of all this. And things happen, they're no longer around, or at least not in this phase, but they were the pioneers. And so I remember all those conversations, all those things going on, and everybody has somewhere where they're trying to funnel people in. So the internships, the scholarships, all that, they're out there. You just have to go and talk to Ms. Howard.
So I will, so in terms of the internship opportunity, so, and I'll have to start with generally speaking, because again, offshore wind is very much in its infancy stage. There, everyone is working to start the process of constructing wind farms across the nation, and everyone's at a different place. So what those internships specifically will be in offshore wind to support each development. Again, it will look different. So as far as Crowley, we will continue to keep the community updated. We will work with organizations like SAFE, even with the city, along with the schools to get that information out. But in a normal day and world, because we specialize in maritime logistics, moving stuff around, the vessels, we do have 2 levels of internship programs. So we have an internship program that's during the summer, and that's for those who are still in college, maritime academies, community college, and then we have a program for new grads, which is a rotational program. So more so than an internship, it's actually a full-time opportunity where you pick an area within Crowley. A good example is IT or even human resources and even communications, where you start in the path of IT if you're interested, is just an example. And you work within 4 different completely groups within the IT umbrella. So that way you'll be well-rounded, and then you can choose at the end of that rotational program, which I believe is around a 6-month time frame, or maybe it's even up to a year. You can pick to choose where it is that you want to land within Crowley. And so we have that track again in IT. We have it with communications and marketing. We also have it within HR, and I feel like I'm missing definitely logistics and warehousing. So those are our standard offering. And again, maritime is our sweet spot. So whether it's offshore wind, whether it's supporting the government and the other projects that Crowley has done for over 130 years, we want to feed that workforce, whether it's the mariner side, whether it's the terminal side, and also if it's in a corporate a role, such as the ones that I've shared. So those things are ongoing. At least we can pass the site for the rotational program and our internship program. Both of those are very competitive. We want to make sure that we have enough spots so that we are creating an optimal experience for any of our folks who are entering those programs. And our goal is not just to have the internship programs, but to actually hire. And if we aren't doing that, then we aren't being successful. And that's the reason why it's so pinpointed. But again, and I want to be clear about understanding the difference in that. That is something that we've always had ongoing. And so the offshore wind component of this is something that we are adding as an additional layer for opportunities for internships. And we're developing what that looks like now. But we also need to have our regular full-time jobs in place as well. So we have, again, our starting point, and we're continuing to build that out. We're actually actively building that out now. And we're going to build it out also to support each of the projects in the different areas of the United States. So our focus is definitely along the coastline, the Northeast, which is well underway and first one's going, but it's also throughout the Mid-Atlantic. Then it's the Southeast going into the Gulf, and then also on the West Coast. So those are our primary targets, at least for our offshore wind strategy. And then, so those internships, along with even the full-time work, it will be catered to what the needs are for each of those developers and offshore wind farm. So more to come. I will personally make sure that we pass that Crowley information on for those who will be attending college, those who are in college, and those who are upcoming graduates. But it's an awesome program. I had my first intern. And so I know personally, being a manager, how much thought and intention that Crowley really puts into this and the opportunities. I wish I was young again, so I could have done this, but I really love what Crowley does, and I'm not being biased. We do a really good job in that area, and I'm looking forward to what we can offer on the offshore wind side of things.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of a resources slide, and then we will.
Cindy, real quick, I think
wrap this up.
Nikki wanted to mention something before we wrap.
Sure,
You
go
can
ahead.
Go ahead and leave the slide. I just wanted to mention
Sure.
that Commonwealth Wind has an arrangement, an agreement that we're putting together the program details for with Browning the Green Space. That will be, we have a commitment for scholarships for any career and any career that leads to offshore wind. And it doesn't have to be a degree program. It can be a certificate program. It can be for the GWO training that we talked about. or any other training that is directly related to offshore wind. And that is something that we're in the middle of development for. There'll be much more press on that when that rolls out. But that is coming, and it is also focused for the DEI commitments that we have to help really diversify the industry and job training. So I just wanted to mention that with this, along with the scholarships. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, we have a internship program and a graduate program, similar to what Akita was talking about in 4 disciplines within the industry, within Avangrid. So there's plenty of information on the for jobs that are available now on the Avangrid website as well. And that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Super, thank you. So Pat, I'll turn it over to you if you want to mention any of these things, and then we've got just a closing slide.
Thank you, Cindy. I want to at the outset give a big thank you to Bonnie Bain, who is SAFE's new offshore wind coordinator. Well, not so new, since June. She has been SAFE's offshore wind coordinator, and we're very happy about the work that Bonnie is doing. SAFE is committed to being at the forefront of looking for opportunities for Salem and for Salem's people, but also for people all throughout the region in terms of being able to find jobs. As an environmental justice city, we're very concerned about other environmental justice cities like Lynn and Peabody and Gloucester. And we hope to have all boats rise. Since we're using a lot of maritime and marine metaphors, but we see this not just as Salem rising, but we see that this is an opportunity for all of the cities in the North Shore area to benefit from what is happening. So look for us to continue to bring you news of clean renewable energy that will come from offshore wind, but better than that too, I suppose not better, but equally important is the opportunity around good paying, family supporting, unionized jobs. That's what we really want to see. And I just want to tell you that on October 8th, SAFE's next presentation will be a very exciting one for us. And it is about Kid Wind. And we're excited that one of the Salem High School students, Jess Velatka, participated in Kid Wind. And the woman who developed that whole program, Megan Amsler, is going to be with us on October 6th. And Jess Velatka, we hope, will join us as well as an area student and teacher who participated in Kid Wind. So we think that to inspire young people, we want you to bring young people to the next presentation on Kid Wind. And with that, I'll thank you. And again, stay involved with SAFE, get on our mailing list if you are not on it. And we will continue to work with you and with our partners, Clean Water Action and Avangrid and Crowley, and bring you, we hope, cutting edge information about offshore wind and its impact on the North Shore. So thank you all from SAFE for coming tonight, and we look forward to seeing you on October 6th at 7 p.m. for a presentation on Kid Wind. Thanks a lot. Good night.
I just want to do one special call out to Haiti, who's been doing a fantastic job trying to keep up with all of us fast speakers in the Northeast, doing our translation. So thank you so much, Haiti.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night. Bonne nuit.